First up, a little bit about Solar Oregon. So my name is Abigail Jager. I'm a program manager here at Solar Oregon, which is the organization running this event today. We are an independent nonprofit that focuses on education, community outreach, and advocacy regarding solar power. This includes a variety of educational webinars, such as this one, How to Go Solar and Storage webinars, solar tours, solar campaigns, and other peer-to-peer education events. We are a 501c3 nonprofit and we are supported by our wonderful members. Thank you, members, for your support. You can become a member or donate today at the link below. You can also follow us on social media and Eventbrite at Solar Oregon in order to make sure you hear about all our great events coming up. We have some more great events coming up this month. We have a really packed month, including an event tomorrow that's working with Portland Public Schools to highlight some of their solar projects. And then in a week, we have a panel with Stracker Solar Panels, which is an Oregon-based solar panel company that's coming out with some really cool new technology. This webinar is also funded by the Energy Trust of Oregon. The Energy Trust of Oregon is an independent nonprofit that provides access to clean and affordable energy, and they help generate homegrown renewable power. They serve 1.6 million customers of Portland General Electric, Pacific Power, Northwest Natural, Cascade Natural Gas, and Avista. Thank you, Energy Trust of Oregon, for your support. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, pictured here with the orange arrow, in order to put in your questions. No need to wait until the end. We'll be going through questions throughout the presentation, so any questions that come up, feel free to put them in. Now, I'm going to tell you a little about Girls Build, which is the organization we're highlighting here today. Girls Build is a nonprofit organization based in Portland, Oregon that inspires curiosity and confidence in girls through the world of building. Girls Build offers programming for girls teaching the basics of carpentry, electrical, plumbing, roofing, painting, auto, and bike mechanics, sheet metal, and more via summer camps for 8 to 15-year-olds and after-school workshops. They are currently working with girls in Southern Oregon, Portland, and the Oregon coast. Now, without further ado, these are our speakers today. First up, we have Kaitlin Borstelmann.
Hi, yeah, I'm Kaitlin Borstelmann, sales manager for the Pacific Northwest for Greentech Renewables, president of the Washington Solar Association, and in the way back, the founder of the solar workshops at Girls Build.
Awesome. Thank you, Kaitlin. And then we also have Laura Nicholson.
Hello, I'm an analyst with Portland General Electric, and I got involved with Kaitlin at the same time for our Oregon camps, doing some of the curriculum design and kind of project design for that.
And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Michelle Maher.
Welcome, everyone. I am a program director for the Oregon Solar Energy and Storage Industries Association, and I also coordinate the LRT apprenticeship program. And I got involved with we coordinate the solar table at all girls build summer camps, and we reach about this year we'll reach about 500 girls.
Awesome, thank you. So now just some questions, and I'm going to be slowly rotating through some photos, just highlighting Girls Build while I go through, and any of our panelists, please jump in with your answers to these. But how did Girls Build get started?
So Girls Build as a nonprofit association, I think that they grew out of some pre-existing camps that were in Portland, but they took it to a whole new level back in 2016. So I think it'd be best for Katie, who's the executive director of Girls Build, to speak specifically to that start of the amazing organization that is Girls Build. I can speak to how we got involved on the solar side of it specifically. We had started our kind of power networking events back in 2016, which was just a group of women and femme-identified folk in Portland and then broader Oregon area who felt a desire to be in community with other women. And so we just started getting together more often and creating opportunities for project work and networking and hiring together. We started meeting on a monthly basis. And I was invited by a board director from Girls Build to come to one of their fundraisers because she thought I would just really love what they were doing. I went to their fundraiser in 2016. I was super inspired by what they were up to. So I walked up to the executive director, to Katie, and I asked her if she might have some room for the solar trade, and what her experience had been there. And she was really lit up by what we were proposing to offer. So we ended up, I think we had like a 1 month turnaround, a very short turnaround time to come up with effective trades-based curriculum for that first camp. So it kind of just came out of this excitement and this networking event, and we took it back to the group and had a group of really fantastic women who were a yes to figuring it out really fast. I have a really vivid memory of hanging out in Laura Clement's backyard in this tiny house that she had built herself, in this like big open fire pit. We were all sitting around just brainstorming. Laura Nicholson, were you at that one? You were there? Yeah. And you were there with Sean. My mom was there. Just kind of sitting around in a circle brainstorming how we could do that. And it was Laura and Sean who brought in, hey, if you're going to introduce trades-based curriculum, you want to make sure that you're tiering the kids through STEM training at first so they understand the science behind what they're doing well, and then incorporate it into trades curriculum. So from Katie that she really loved what we were doing, and she started inviting us as the organization grew. She started inviting us to other locations with them. That was back in 2016, and I think short of 1 year, which was 2020, we've been involved at different levels ever since.
That's really cool. So that's 7 or 8 years now. If we ignore 2020 as a funky year. That's really great. Do the girls, this is for my own knowledge as well, do the girls specialize in one trade that they're interested in, or do they all get to try their hand at all the different ones?
Yeah, I can go ahead and answer that because the girls rotate through a variety of different stations. And again, as Kaitlin mentioned, Katie, the executive director of Girls Build, can do an even better job at kind of highlighting and showcasing their organization and how it works as a whole. But having been there, many times we see they rotate through different stations. They also have typically a larger full week project as a part of these camps that they're building their skills through, and doing such things as together building a playhouse, for instance, is one of the camps that has existed in the past. And so they're really getting to experience a variety of many different trades, and the real basics are about enabling them, and not just to go into the trades, but to have the DIY skills to be able to use tools, and that can span just many different options. And that's where our solar camp has been, 1 hour of their full week with Girls Build.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Before I switch the slide, can one of you tell me about the project that's currently being shown? Michelle, you have an example?
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is this year's project. And so on the one side is the solar panel, which goes in your window, and it charges all day. And then at night, you have to work on it. Here we go. Make sure you all can see it. This is in effect, the night light, our neon night light. And then when the sun comes out, it stops charging it stops lighting up, and it charges the battery. Super
That's really
brilliant gadget created by Laura Nicholson here and Jenny Hall and Sarah.
And the photos here in the slideshow are just kind of showing the development process and bringing together the idea from kind of the ideation to getting the final product, like you can see Michelle holding it up there.
It's so cool that the girls get a tangible thing to take home and show their skills that they can look at and remind them of their experience they have at the camp. Here's another example of the same project. They can do all different shapes. So you've talked a little bit about what the girls learn. Can you expand more upon that? I know you've mentioned STEM skills and how you're obviously learning trades work, which can be useful whether or not you're hanging, being confident to hang something in your own bedroom or building a playhouse. But how do you tell me more about the curriculum development and what the girls are learning on the day-to-day at the camp?
Yeah, and if I can give a little bit of historical overview of my reference to the trades part. So it's been very fun. We've gone through many iterations of curriculum over time, and how it's gotten honed in is from a ton of feedback from Girls Build and the campers and volunteers. And so when we first started, it was like, we built a mini roof. It was huge. It was heavy. I might have pulled my back out. It was an arduous process. A whole bunch of us were involved in creating this roof, and we had I think we got 3 Solar World solar panels donated, and Rebuilding Center donated like some of the lumber. And at this point, this is all just like a group of us getting together and trying to get stuff for free. And so we built this huge roof, and we taught the girls how to actually like lay down sticks of solar rail, level the rail, lay down the solar panels, and install them using tools. And then our goal was to have any work around like stripping wire, fishing wire through conduit to be led as much as possible by like female electricians. The whole point in this, it was to help create more female electricians, etc. And so there weren't that many. So we had a couple volunteers who really like, they overextended a bit helping with all of these different camps, so that we had these experts on hand, because that's how the camps are run. Like every one of the workshops is run by folks who are trade experts at what they're teaching, which I think is pretty critical for it. So we started that way. And then Laura was immensely helpful in like gearing up this like introduction. Like she came up with these really creative ideas for how you like teach kids about a circuit by holding hands and using, what's the thing called, Laura, with the
Energy stick.
The energy stick that lights up, and like just getting them to wrap their heads around what we're about to do, and using, little solar panels to create circuits. And she did a great job of teaching the circuits. And then we built that into actual like curriculum for our volunteers, so that they understood before they started to actually install the solar panels. And at one point we had it go into a battery backup, and you could plug a toaster in, and you could toast Pop-Tarts from the sun. We pre-charge the battery, but we don't tell the kids that all the time. So
You want to have the fail safe in case it's cloudy that day.
I always
You want
wanted to
them to
wing
get
camp.
the joy from it.
But they were, yes,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah.
pre-charged using the solar panels. This was not,
That
it's
was-
not a battery system that can be plugged into the wall.
Yeah, it was
So
a full
it is.
cheat. Yeah. So then we went through this 2020, and we'd already had this thought that I feel like Jenny brought up this thought about like we should have take homes. There should be something the kids can take. At the time, we were just a separate group of people. We were like a community making this happen. We weren't a 501c3 who got funds donated. So we went through this transition with the camps where they needed kids separated, and we needed it'd be better for 501c3 to be running this program, because we were at that point, I think I counted, we were over 1,200 kids we had taught to install solar. That was back in 2020. I'm sure it's way higher now. And so I'm so happy that all of the programming got put under the umbrella of OCF through OCEA. And then I feel like Laura really took the reins with Jenny on like creating these awesome take-home projects. And you can take it from here, Laura. Then I moved to Seattle, Washington. So it's all, sort of this transition that occurred around 2020 for the curriculum.
Right. And Jenny Hall with Energy Trust of Oregon is who Kaitlin's been referring to there. And I think that is an important point, because originally their solar camp section of Girls Build was 100% volunteer based. Any materials, we didn't have any kind of take home capabilities, because when we're serving hundreds of kids a summer, it really was focused on the installation aspects of it and kind of the experiential aspect of it. And what joining under the OCEA umbrella, that Solar Education Fund allowed for potential funds as well as donations. I mean, taxable donations. For instance, it allowed for many things, but the big piece of that was the take-home aspect of it. And then that coupled with COVID, which meant that camps became very much more individualized. We had really highly emphasized and focused this collaboration. You're getting 4 girls carrying the solar panel over to our demonstration roof. We had a lot of, we kind of purposely had limited supplies, not just because of donations, but to make them work together. And COVID changed that a lot because that really required the separation, the individualized project. And from that, we did a lot more maybe smaller scale work there, maybe sometimes a little bit more STEM focused, sometimes a little bit more or a little bit less so, but it really was around still focusing on those hands-on tools and some knowledge of the kind of the basics of solar and how that works. And so we had such projects as, they're working on soldering, and so that's a skill that crosses many trades. They are working on a small circuit board, but it's that transferable skill as well. And so that's kind of where we are, where we've been, I guess, weighing in between these two and really trying to find the right balance where we really are wanting to be focused on trades, on the DIY skills, on the tools, and while also being able to use some of this smaller miniaturized items to help in understanding and education. And so this year we're kind of excited because we cross those two paths together in a slightly different way than we had before. So rather than using some of the more solar installation based skills of fishing conduit, installing the solar panel itself, we're looking at this project, the example that Michelle showed up there. If you want to put it back up on the screen, you can see that these on the slideshow here, and the front. This on the slides here, these are some prototypes, with some push pins and whatnot. But in this final versions, they're being nailed in, and so there's still the skills, the tools being used are, hammering, nailing, potentially drilling, putting together the circuit, and so we're still using some of those DIY and hands-on kind of tool skills that span a broader range of trades as well, with kind of the solar inspiration, I think I'd say.
And to acknowledge y'all further, it's like there's been a couple projects now too where you collaborated with the other trades, right? Like the carpenters. And so then they would build the box with the carpenters, and then they would come over and like complete it with the solar team. And so they got to see a project through and how different trades are part of it. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's super cool.
I want to weigh in about the volunteers here because this is made possible by a lot of people and organizations working together. The Energy Trust of Oregon funds pretty much OSEEF, so Oregon Solar Energy Education Fund's time to bring together. We have over 80 potential volunteers, and we Powered P&W, which is every last Thursday at the Lucky Lab. And the theme is women in energy. And so what we do is we gather people who show up at Women of Energy and try to, and what we want is women professionals in the energy, both trades and disciplines, to be role models for girls, because, a lot of girls don't have role models in the trades. They don't see women in energy or in the trades. And so a lot of times that our conditioning as women has us not believe that somebody like us could do these kinds of things. And that's one of the really important workforce development reasons that we do Girls Build. So we've gotten together. We have 83 potential volunteers, and then we schedule them across 8 different camps, 3 happening in Portland and 5 others happening in small towns around the state, so that these girls are introduced to the trades. And for us, they're introduced to solar. And we want them to, one of the reasons I want them to bring home something really cool, not only is because it's cool, it's because they didn't. And so that's to fight all the conditioning that says you as a woman can't do it. Well, I remember hearing as a kid, yeah, you can do anything, but I had very few women in my life, my childhood, that were professionals, that had something more than, they had something we wouldn't label now a career. And so it's pivotal, because the identification with the difference between male and female, or we might as well use, race, racial differences. When you don't see people like you, it's so easy to just not even think that you could do that. So we're glad to expose girls to professionals, to images that show women and girls doing things. And now we've just proved it, because they put it together. They knew what they were doing at the time of the instruction, and now they get to see it every day. And so that's the plan. I hear over and over, we do solar installation trainings, and I hear solar contractors saying, well, women are just not interested in solar. And I think nothing could be farther from the truth. Women don't believe that, it's a place where the worksite culture would support someone like them, or they just don't see themselves. They don't see it as possible. However, the more I show images and videos of women doing solar and making it happen, that would be awesome. I would love to do that. And so now we have an increased number of apprentices, for example, female apprentices. It's starting. It's happening. It's slow, but it's happening.
That leads me directly to my next question. Have you had anyone who's gone through the camp and now is pursuing a trade skill or solar certification, or has come back to volunteer after completing the camp in their own age? Any sort of success stories like that you guys know about, or not yet? I know you mostly work with young girls, so they could still be in school and working towards it, which I fully would believe.
Well, if 2019 was the first camp, and generally that person would be about 15 right now. So we don't have anyone, we do not have an apprentice, and I don't know of a female installer, for example, that's a product of Girls Build, but I sure expect that to happen.
Definitely in the next few years. I know how important role models and just exposure to things like this can be. I'm really grateful of the exposure I got to woodworking and hand building skills when I was in high school, and the confidence it gave me when I want to do stuff now as an adult has been really great. That leads me to my next question, though, of why do you all continue to volunteer and work with Girls Build, and what's the value for you guys that keeps you involved? I know, Michelle, that's pretty much what you were just talking about, but
yeah, well, I want to add that it's the best thing we do. I think it's the best thing of all my job tasks. It's the best thing that I get to do all year, for sure, because they get to see all of us doing what we're doing and talking about our jobs. It's potentially pivotal in a young person's life.
And I've been involved entirely 100% as a volunteer, from a volunteer perspective. And I think that for me, it's been, I used to be teaching renewable energy to teachers. I led curriculum development and renewable energy curriculum for those teachers. And so that's where I really, as Kaitlin mentioned, bringing in kind of the STEM side. I'm always trying to make sure that we're not too STEMmy, because there's a time and place for that. And this isn't necessarily that place, but being able to tie together all of the education, the what's out there and what's possible. I'd say really, really inspires me. And then from the fun side of it, you know, being able to develop new projects and come up with these ideas that we can turn into something that we can take home. You know, we've designed these circuit boards. I'd say that's a big part of what's kept me going here.
We have a question in the queue from Linda. Hi, Linda.
You. Linda asks, and it's a question, Linda asks specifically how Solar Oregon, which is my organization that I work for, could be more involved with Girls Build, but for anyone else who's watching this, how can people get involved and support Girls Build?
Let's see. Well, first of all, we always need volunteers. Let's just start there. We always need volunteers. And we have a committee that makes the curriculum, a new curriculum and a new project every year. So if you're someone who has those skill sets, please volunteer. That has really been primarily from Laura, Jenny, and Sarah for a really long time. Another way that you can, certainly you can, you know, fund, for example, fund middle school and early high school girls to go to Girls Build. But I also have a vision that in the future, we could also just have a solar summer camps in a lot of different places. And that's a much longer term vision. It's going to need more curriculum development and support. But I think that we could really pull that off with a lot of the interest that we have. It would just mean funding, structure, and someone to organize young people to show up. Those are the ideas that I have.
And I think on that volunteer front, one thing I did want to emphasize is that while we have this unique kind of niche with Girls Build, because the majority of the stations, the majority of the folks there are deeply and highly involved in the trades, and where we kind of offer this two-part benefit is we are offering those adult volunteers who may not be working in the trades or may not have ever seen that as being something that they could even do in solar or otherwise. We're giving folks who are working in solar or even just interested in working in solar the opportunity to join us as volunteers. And so they are getting those hands-on experiences and skills as well alongside the girls. And so that's when Michelle is saying that we're looking for, you know, for volunteers, it's not limited to, you don't have to be the solar installer, you don't have to be the electrician. We'd love to have more of those as well, but we're open. Volunteers.
Nice, good point.
Where can people go to find out how to volunteer or sign up to learn more information?
Good point. They can just contact me. So my email is Michelle, MICHELLE, at OSEA, OSEIA.org. So I'm going to say that again for anyone who's writing it down. It's Michelle, MICHELLE, at OSEIA, OSEIA.org. That is a little bit different than the acronym for OSEIA. Just saying, so you know that it is. My cell also is 541-870-5538.
Awesome. Thank you. And then I have one last question that I prepared, and then if there's any other questions from attendees, we'll be happy to take those as well. But what else needs to happen in terms of women gaining more representation within the trades and within solar specifically?
I'll start that. What needs to happen to gain more women in the trades? A lot needs to happen. Work site cultures that are, let's say, inhospitable. You know, sometimes work site cultures that are male have the stereotype of being places where there's a lot of hazing, and a lot of things that are sexual innuendos. There's a lot of sexism. That work site culture needs to transform, not only for women, but also for the men and others that are involved. So the trades know that that's an issue, and there is a committee that has almost all of the representation of all of the trades on it, in Oregon, called Safe from Hate, trying to change worksite culture so that it's a truly supportive and awesome place to be, right? And especially in a place like solar. What's cool about solar is a lot of people who care for the earth, you know, in general, they have better relationships with each other. So that in itself, I think, is really, really important. But solar also has kind of the added issue, like roofing. When people are on a roof, they really need to trust each other. And in a sexist, racist, or just hazing atmosphere, that's not conducive to when people they have to trust each other. And I think that may be why some teams in solar, they kind of get so, you know, bonded. And I think that's, you know, is motivation to changing worksite culture to something that is healthy. I think that there's employers that are motivated to do that. And I hope that spreads really to the full industry and throughout construction. I think the other things that have to happen, we already talked about how important it is to remind and support girls to see themselves in solar, girls, and certainly girls of color. And I also think it's really important to have boys of color, see that girls and women belong in the trades. That's also really important. A lot of times we may focus on, you know, the person that's underrepresented, but then we're not changing the context. That's made it inhospitable. You know, and women have always been in some kind of trades in one way or another. And it's the kind of the last, you know, integration hasn't happened. And it seems that if you look at data, when women start to enter a field, the pay goes down as part of the institutionalized sexism in it. And the trades have resisted that, I think, by resisting women. And I think it's about time that both of those issues change and that everyone gets equal pay for equal work. Yeah, I think that also our systems of working with organizations about the worksite culture, this is something that's like almost unfunded, you know, and it ends up being in a one session diversity, equity, and inclusion, you know, training that's trying to get the employer to not be liable for some things that could happen on a work site, instead of actually developing relationships between members, helping them work together well, resolving problems, you know, all of those kinds of things to make workplaces a true community. Unfortunately, this is a place where I think funding would really benefit not only solar, but all of the construction trades, and it would actually change also our society, because, you know, when people are separated in schools for 12 years and they're not supposed to talk to their neighbor, they have superficial relationships. And then they go to the workplace and they don't have relationship skills to understand how to resolve problems or to deal with a lot of stress. And let's face it, being on a roof in all weather is already enough stress. You know what I'm saying? So these are some skill sets that I really believe that we would all benefit from. Anybody else have other things to add?
Specific to solar, just something I have seen is as a lower that you have women and femme-identified folk coming out of pre-apprenticeship programs and then going to wait in line for potentially 2 years to get an apprenticeship spot. I have no interest in saying, I'm not saying anything about unions here at all whatsoever. I'm just saying the reality is a lot of people are waiting to get an apprenticeship spot right now. And so there's been attrition that's occurred because you already have kind of a smaller percentage of graduating class coming out that are female or femme identified, and then they're told to wait a couple of years. And you already have, I think Michelle did a good job of alluding to kind of just like the pay and cost pressures on a lot of these folks. And so they end up leaving and maybe even leaving trades altogether, but definitely leaving solar or ending up, I've met a number of folks who end up, and this isn't a bad thing, but end up in like project management or something like that, which is great. It's a great career. But it was just because, hey, I had to wait 2 years and my momentum is here. I'm excited. I'm ready. So I see there being low-hanging fruit if folks are coordinating with pre-apprenticeship programs or folks who are interested in solar electrical trade and incorporating them in such a way that they feel like they're in a support structure or they're in the context of solar. Something like we've done before is we've hired people into our warehouse and then put them in, like empowered them in fun and engaging roles that teach them electrical components while they're waiting. For their apprenticeship spot so that we don't have that attrition. So just some lower hanging fruit on places to make pathway connections potentially.
Yeah. Let me add to that. We've also seen that there's a female electrician I know at AES that right now who she was on the wait list for 5 years and she had passed the test with 100. Right? So technically she's number one, but she waited for 5 years. I don't know how that happens, to be honest. I run an apprenticeship program. But what she was never told was that she could start with the LRT program, the Limited Renewable Energy Apprenticeship Program. That's a limited electrical license to install renewable energy systems, including micro hydro, wind, and solar and battery backup systems under 50 kilowatts. So if she had started in our program, she could already have an LRT, be installing solar, and then if she went to Clackamas Community College's electrical apprenticeship program, she'd be halfway. She'd walk in as a level 3 apprentice, but she didn't know that. So Kaitlin, thank you for bringing that up because this is a good thing to say online, that there is now being developed an LRT to electrician direct pathway. And there are also some electrical apprenticeship programs that accept 1,500 to 2,000 of our hours, which is half. So they could at least start a year, right? They could do a year and then jump whenever they got the opening in the electrical apprenticeship program, and then they could transfer there on the out there that I think sometimes are not being shared at the pre-apprenticeship level, or just for those that don't go through pre-apprenticeships, they just don't know about it.
Yeah, and I do think that's a key point, is that knowledge, access, and then those time barriers of it being important that anybody who does start off on that path is able to see the next step, and not have the next step be unknown. Maybe 5 years is your next step. Having pathways to be able to continue and feel like you are working towards something. I think that's just really critical.
I think like it's another nod to the magic that is Girls Build. Like when you're asking why we return, why we volunteer. I was looking at this photo and getting really nostalgic. There's little things about this photo that I feel like only Laura and I would pick up on, like the little line in the middle of the roof. That means that's our second iteration of the roof where it broke into 3 pieces so it was more carryable. And if you look in the back of the Girls Build trailer, which is this really fancy trailer that they had donated after years of just doing like everything out of their vehicles, plus this old school bus that we used to load up. Like they'd let us take our roof and like try to load it up in Portland, and I'd meet them down in Grants Pass. We're doing those camps. It's all just, it just felt so DIY at first. And it's been so magical to like grow, and like all the amazing work that OSEF's now doing and Laura and Jenny are doing, like all together, like seeing that and where it's come to, along with where Girls Build is at now, is just, it's really great. And so it got me personally hooked outside of the fulfillment of, these camps and the curriculum and doing all of it, just like on a personal level, the feeling of sitting at the end of the day and being surrounded by like women and femme-identified folk that are all just total experts in their field, and they're kicking back, and maybe we're having a sparkling water or a rosé with our feet in some water because it's 100 degrees out, and just talking about the magic of seeing like 100 kids and everyone, no matter how DIY or how polished it is, everyone's learning together, and it's all just like this world where you belong, right? Like this feeling of like, I belong here, and this totally makes sense. And that feeling of representation where you look around, it's just like, I don't know. I haven't experienced that personally outside of Girls Build as a volunteer, where I'm just looking around, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just all women and femme folk. Like, it's just like, and everyone's an expert and kind of a, really tough and really rad and really good at what they do. And I think that feeling culturally carries through and must carry through for these kids into adulthood when they're working on their own projects and homes, but also into those moments, right, where there's adversity, where you're like, if you had a background feeling of like, yeah, but it's normal for me to try this pathway and I belong here, I think you're going to see folks figure out things like the LRT pathway more effectively than if they're already like, I already don't kind of belong. This is sort of for dudes. It's already hard enough. And then you have people leave. But like Girls Build creates this culture of belonging really young. And then I'm hoping it carries through. Which, by the way, in 2016, we did the first camp. We had a 17-year-old and a 16-year-old. And part of me does wonder, like, what are they up to?
Yes, that sounds exciting.
And to
That
that,
also
and to
leads
that,
really well into one other question we got in the chat, which is, what is the age range of girls that can attend the camp? And I'll add on, if someone's gotten inspired listening to you all talk about it, what's the process like to either apply or be involved in the camp? Where should they go for that information, and who's eligible?
I can take them. First, if they want to attend the camp, and for this year, the camps are full, but it's girlsbuild.org. And then there's on the menu, it says camps, and that's where parents can sign up there, or people can sign up, young people.
And it's ages 8 to 15, or are there other ages outside of that?
I'm not sure.
8 to 15 is what I found and said earlier, so we'll go with that. But double check the website for eligibility requirements for sure.
Yeah, the first year was a different age range. They kind of changed it later on. But and then to your question there, Abby, they do have volunteers that come back and volunteer that were campers for the Girls Build portion of the camp, which is really neat to see too, just kind of the culture building on itself there.
One thing that I'd like to see, and I don't know how to make it happen in Girls Build, is to have the people, our volunteers really explain more about their jobs and how they got into it. It's not really exactly appropriate for Girls Build, but it takes too much time. It takes too much time. We have a project, we have a curriculum, but there's a place for when girls are looking for, well, where can I do this? What training do I need to make this happen? That's really, I also think, a place where there needs to be more information out there to get into their hands, so that they get that, like a mentor, for example.
Yes, something to continue the community aspect that Girls Build is already building as they advance past Girls Build almost.
Yeah.
Goals for the future and the next iteration of Girls Build.
Yeah.
Well, we had one other comment in the chat, is that Linda also reminded us that Solar Oregon does a variety of webinars like this, and we did a day in the life of a solar technician with Mark Farrell. So that's up on our YouTube channel if anyone's interested. But I also want to open it up to all of you one last time if there's any other final words. Really appreciate you all being here and taking the time to speak. And I know you made me wish I could go to one of these camps, and I'm really looking forward to volunteering this summer.
Great. Well, we love to have you. And I just want to say thank you, Abigail and Nicole, for making this happen, and Kaitlin, Laura, for just being here, Kim and Linda. And I think I saw Shweta in there for attending. And yeah, I really appreciate that this is here and that we get to put this up on our website now and up on our newsletter and get it out to bigger audience.
Yeah, I just want to say just another plug for just contributing and volunteering to the camps. I'm sure Michelle will take more volunteers. Like, I don't know how to describe how magical of an experience it is, but it's just like the kind of community that comes out of, you know, potentially, like for me working, like I was literally inviting competitors to come and volunteer at the camps together. And it's just a really special feeling of community at Girlsville as a whole, and then within the solar group as well. It's a really good experience, even if you just do half a day.
I'm really looking forward to it this summer. I know Nicole got to volunteer last summer, and this will be my first time volunteering, and I'm really looking forward to it. Well, thank you again, everyone, for being here and for attending and asking questions. This will be posted up on our YouTube channel and shared out, but I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Hey, take
Thanks
care.
all.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much.